Alright guys, you loved the last one apparently. Already at 100,000 views. It keeps on growing in views. Has 1,000 likes. That's my how to prevent cheating video. I really appreciate each and every view, each and every comment, each and every like. It's awesome that I got that many. Now, today, I thought a couple days ago, I thought to myself, hey, everyone liked that video, how about I make a part 2? Couldn't really think of any ideas, so I had to ask my friends on Facebook, and surprisingly, I guess I missed a lot, because a lot of people were, I mean, these ideas aren't as obvious as the other ones. They're more like things that might happen once in a blue moon, but I figured it's better content than nothing, right? And you guys seem to really like the cheating video, so this is going to be a part 2, and it's not going to be as serious as the last video, but it's still stuff that happens, so just keep that in mind. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Subscribe to my channel and like the video, and leave some comments. Let me know what kind of videos you want in the future, I guess, because besides deck profiles and retro deck profiles and duels, I don't know what else there is, but maybe you guys could help me out. Yep. So hope you enjoy the video. Sorry in advance about the cameraman. That's Yugioh Trader 101. Check out his channel. He is the worst cameraman I have, ever seen in my life. Like, it's pretty simple to just like concentrate the camera on what it's supposed to be focused on, but he's like all over the place with this camera. I just, like, honestly, Joe, how could you be a worse cameraman? Yeah, let's get started with the video.
Here we are with an example of drawing extra cards. In the first example we will use, we are going to align Paul's hand with only 3 cards. This technique is used by players who are able to hide their hand, or the quantity of cards in the hand, by laying them flat in a pile as such. For when the opponent asks, how many cards are in your hand, Paul will reply with 4, while the reality is he only has 3 cards in hand. By doing so, if your opponent corrects you and says, wait, I'm pretty sure you only have 3, you can simply say, oh, I must have been mistaken. But what the cheater is trying to accomplish is that during their next draw phase, as we see here, Paul is able to draw 2 cards at once.
Well, I'm not a cheater, but you're supposed to draw 2 cards in hand.
By drawing 2 cards, he now has 5 cards in hand.
One more than what I said before.
On the previous turn, he told his opponent he had 4 cards in hand, making it so that it would make sense for him to now have 5 cards in hand, when in reality he went from 3 to 5, drawing an additional card for his turn. Other ways in which people can draw cards can always have to do with when your opponent is not paying attention. They could just simply take another card off the top of their deck and be deceptive.
Always pay attention to your opponent, because the minute you look away, you never know, they might just...
One of my good friends, Anthony Kelly, keeps a die out that represents the number of cards in his opponent's hand at all times. It starts with 6, and whenever it moves during any point of the turn or any point of the game, it goes from 5, 4, 3. He played me at Long Beach, and I was a little taken aback. I was like, what's that die for? It keeps moving around. He's like, number of cards in here. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Something you can do to prevent this, you can always ask your opponent to spread out their hand, show you all the amount of cards in your hand. You can also, I'm pretty sure it's legal to just like write a number on your paper and pen, with your paper and pen, of how many cards are in their hand every turn if you want.
I could do the die trick like Anthony.
You can do the dice. Yeah, that's about to skip.
The next example we have has to do with foreign language cards. In my opinion, I don't think this will happen very often, but Paul is insistent that we include this in the skit. It has to do with using any type of foreign language card which your opponent will not be able to read offhand, and telling them it does something dramatically different from what it does. For example, this mind control saying,
what's this do?
It takes a control of one of your opponent's monsters regardless of position, and you cannot contribute it.
No, it doesn't do that.
Oh, really? What does it do?
You lose 2,000 life points when I activate it.
That's just what it does.
That's its effect.
Yeah, for some reason, Paul thinks it's a way of cheating, but I'm not sure exactly how common this happens.
You lose 2,000 life points.
Alright, it's part of the skit, though. We're including it. Yep, Paul wants us in there. It's in there. Yes, yes. The next example we're going to talk about has to do with text messaging. In this example, an opponent, unknowingly, will have their hand revealed to the people behind them, where Paul will have someone he knows text messaging him the contents of the hand. This is why you should really never let your opponent...
Dark-armed dragons in his hand?
You should really never let your...
God, Avarice!
You should really never let your opponent have their phone on the table. Some people use it as a calculator, but if they're going to use it as a calculator, be aware.
They get little notifications.
Yeah, they get little notifications.
They're small. They can see it. You can't.
Yeah, they get little notifications about text messages and whatnot. So you could theoretically tell them that you feel uncomfortable with them using their phone to keep their phone in their pocket. Just gonna throw that out there. But yeah, gotta watch out for text messaging, hand content.
Singing too?
The next example we have here is a tactic known as stealing during the match, thus resulting in a game loss for the opponent. Here I have presented my opponent with my 40 card deck. Right, this one might be 41. And they're shuffling. I'm over here shuffling their deck and doing what I have to do to my opponent.
Deck man.
As you can see, the deck seems to have decreased in size. It wouldn't actually be this dramatic.
Judge,
yeah.
Your deck is too small. I think you're using not enough cards against me.
Well, usually what your opponent would do is they would pile shuffle and be like, you only have 39 cards, you only have 38 cards.
Yeah, let me count. Dude, you only have 18 cards in your deck. You're trying to play me with 18 cards? I'm called a judge.
In more realistic situations, there would be 38 cards, and your opponent would have lost 2 cards because they would end up on Paul's lap or end up in the hands of another person around.
Might end up in my boxes. Look how much profit I made, man. I just robbed this dumbass kid. His whole deck was foreign. It's crazy. 22 cards.
Here, this example is stalling for time. Usually dependent on what the life point count is. If the life points are so dramatically in your favor, or your opponent's favor who's doing the cheating against you, they could theoretically begin to stall when it comes close to time, making so that it become inherently difficult for you to bridge the gap. Here we see Paul take an extraordinary amount of time pondering his decisions. Reading cards, looking through your extra deck is another one. Just reading cards in your extra deck.
No, I did that. That's your grave?
That's another one.
Oh, you have a saying in the grave? That's good to know. Alright, I'll draw for my turn now. Damn, this is tough.
Sometimes I play like this, but it's actually because I'm
Exodia.
thinking about something. Yeah, that's a little...
Alright, that's it.
And nice Jarrell. Here we have a general example of using cards such as Final Countdown or Gold Sarcophagus and deceptively keep track of the quantity of turns that have surpassed since the activation of the card. This also works with the activations of cards such as Reckless Breed in terms of keeping track of draw phases. It simply means your opponent misleading you, making you believe that 12 turns have passed as opposed to 10, or 14 as opposed to 12. It'll usually happen later in the amount of turns because it can be relatively difficult to keep track of Final Countdown turns. Some turns go quickly, some turns don't. And keeping track of Final Countdown can become difficult, and if your opponent sees that you aren't keeping adequate count of the Final Countdown, they may in fact start picking it up additional amounts. Our next example has to do with marked sleeves, allowing the opponent to know exactly what cards in their deck are. As we can look at the deck, we see that there is a sleeve that is dramatically marked in comparison to the other ones. It obviously will not be this dramatic in real life. It will probably be something like a subtle corner. But regardless of how dramatic it is, if the opponent is wary enough to keep track of it, they'll be able to know exactly wherever card they want to mark is. It's their Final Countdown, just keeps going to the top. Maybe it's because the sleeve is absolutely destroyed, but more likely than not, it'll be something incredibly subtle, something that your opponent, or you will be unable to pick up on, but your opponent will be able to pick up on. And they'll be able to track cards. Usually what happens with a card like Crush Card Virus or something, they would swing the game in their favor, dust shoot, etc. Here we have an example of blatant cheating. As you can see, I have Dimensional Fissure on the field. I just summoned a tour guide, and my opponent tried to discard Effect Veiler. Obviously you can't do that because I have D-Fissure on the field.
No, you can because someone told me, like I'm like 100% sure. Trust me, my friend told me. He's legit. He's a judge actually. You can still, because it's not on the field, so you can just discard it from your hand. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you.
It's like Hornet.
It negates it. It negates it.
Oh, sure.
So don't call a judge or anything. Okay.
As a general rule of thumb, if there is a life point dispute, the player who is keeping track with paper and pen is going to win out over the person who's keeping track with the calculator. Therefore, if your opponent sees you are keeping track with the calculator while they are keeping track with pen and paper, If they notice that you are not keeping adequate count of their own pen and paper, they can deceptively change the life point count. For example, here, my opponent has listed my life points at 1,300, while my calculator says I'm at 2,300. Even if I've been keeping perfect track of life points on my calculator, my opponent's 1,300 will outrule my 2,300 if I were to call a judge and dispute that, because his pen and paper will outweigh the calculator on virtually every circumstance. So if your opponent is in fact keeping track with pen and paper, that's fine, you should let them. But make sure that you're keeping good track of it with them and making sure that they're accurate on their piece of paper. Here we have an example of a card underneath the mat. In this situation, the card underneath Paul's spellcard mat is vital to his opening hand. Therefore, by adding it in a subtle way, he'll able to hide the fact that he only drew 4 cards and in fact added a 5th card to his hand.
As you can see, 4. I can just simply go like this, and look. I mean, I'm sure people can make it less obvious. Like, they can hide the fact that they have
They can just
card.
always hide Max Sienna there when they need it against whatever deck.
You can hardly notice, like, I know for a fact, I'm always like trying to slide. It's not easy to pick your hand up sometimes, so I'm always sliding it off. And it'll be easy to just like have a card under there. And you might not be able to. You might not be able to notice sometimes.
Yes. Here we have an example called switching decks. I guess if someone were to actually want to do this, they would have the balls to scout what their opponent is playing and then play a deck that has a good matchup against it.
Say you're running like...
I think you'd be asinine to even contemplate this, because if your opponent knows and calls a judge, you'll be banned for 2 years.
I'm playing X-Sabers, for instance, and I just found out my opponent's playing a Macrocosmos DD Survivor deck. This deck just loses to that, I think, so just throw that to the side. Get my GOAT format deck. I know this is really good against Macro. Only really card that revolves with Grave is Sinister Serpent and VLS, right? So I got this deck to combat the Macrocosmos DD Survivor deck. This will stop their Macrocosmos and Dark Bribe, no problem.
Here an opponent has more than 15 cards in their side deck and their extra deck, making it so that if they need to go into some of the fringe Exceeds or Synchro monsters, they'll have access to it.
Dude, my extra deck's this big! I can just summon anything. And then when my opponent has any answers to my deck, I'm just like, look at this side deck. I side into X-Sabers. I'm running Chaos Dragon, I just side into X-Sabers. It's crazy, dude. Try it.
In this example here, we have our wonderful Lightsworn player marking cards, specifically Judgment Dragon, in their deck, and making it so that when they reach that card on top of their deck during the end phase of a mill, they skip it. For example, we here enter the end phase with Lumina on the field.
End phase, on all 3. 1, 2. As you can see, pretend that this is like a marked sleeve. This one's obviously really marked.
It is pretty marked.
But what they would notice the marked sleeve, and that's obviously a JD. So they would just be like, oh, I'll get the card under it, so I can draw next turn. So if you just,
a good band player was very famous for doing this, but Paul decided not to call anybody else.
No, I'm gonna say it rhymes with Chempang Kang. Chempang Kang. His name rhymes with Chempang Kang. It's a guy, by the way. Right?
And then boom! Always
JD.
Always.
It's gold rare.
Here we see our opponent having an unbelievable 6-card hand stacked, ready to go. Let's see what they do.
See, the deck was pretty much just like set to, like, I have the best hand on top. Now if you're friendly with your opponent, they're going to trust you, and when you hand them your deck, they're probably just going to like not cut it all or cut once.
Oh, that's a bad cut.
I get the final cut, so I could just...
This doesn't happen anymore. The opponent will always have the final cut.
Oh, sometimes the opponent won't reset.
Well, just because... No, don't have to reset. Just because they changed this ruling doesn't mean that people don't do this still.
Yeah, okay. And then, here's the hand. Same hand. Same hand.
It's pretty solid.
It's what is that, like a nutty? And I stacked the Veilors out of their hand.
And Maxi.
And Maxi.
In this example here, we see our opponent resolve the effect of their Sanguine and drop a card from their deck while searching the deck into their hand in a subtle manner.
I'll get Spy.
1
second. I forgot to get the card. I need it.
Wow, so good.
Got Tsukiomi. Goat format.
Sorry. Here we see Paul swap a card from his hand with the back row on the field because now the back row has become horrific for the situation that has come up.
Whoops.
I'll attack with my 4 monsters. Maraforce?
Maraforce!
They all died. No!
My Dust Tornado wouldn't have done anything.
Nope.
Yes, I kind of know how to edit. I just want to leave that part in there to make fun of them.
This example pertains to when we're in areas or there are people from different countries who speak different languages and therefore can speak languages that are not the native tongue with their friends, which you do not understand. For example, going and playing at an event and there being individuals who speak Spanish and have them speak Spanish with their friends around you when you're playing. Perhaps giving away the cards in your hand because you don't understand what they're saying. See. In this example here, we have Paul either receiving or giving signals to someone based on the cards in somebody's hand.
So say I'm standing behind my friend's opponent. I can see his hand. I see a Book of Moon in his hand. I could just be like this to my friend.
How about Mystical Space Typhoon? Solemn Judgment. Murmillo. No, Murmillo's this one.
Come on, more.
Bestiari.
Bottomless Trap Hole.
Let me see here. Mind Control.
Come on, more.
Let me see here. I'm looking. I can't really think of any other cards.
Tour Guide.
Okay. Rescue Rabbit. Sabersaurus. No, Cabazals. This is a common way in which friends tell friends what somebody is playing.
Hey Joe, check out this Thousand Eyes I got from my Goat format deck. It's awesome.
In reality, I'm about to play an X-Saber deck. And if his opponent's like, wait a minute, what are you doing? See, Thousand Eyes. It's secret. Isn't it cool?
Yeah, so if your opponent looks back, you get the Thousand Eyes right here. Proof.
Yeah, watch out for people doing that. Friend asks, here's an example of a code word. Paul is playing, that's relatively close to the end of time. Someone behind him notices that he can go for game if you were to not care about Gorus Tragodia Battle Fader. So someone asks from the crowd, hey Paul, how much time is left in the round?
Oh, I know. 32 minutes.
Go for game.
That means go for game.
YOLO, no Gorus.
I will summon Sangan, use double summon. I use double summon.
Zephyros.
Get Sangan's effects. Add Gravekeeper Spy and secret card.
Game.
Game.
Here's an example of Paul deceptively marking the match slip after I beat him.
Oh, you won, right?
Wow. Make sure you always make sure your opponent doesn't do this. Cannot reverse this.
Here, sign.
Yeah, after we fix that, bro.
Sign it. Go ahead and sign it. Judge? Judge? Yeah, hold on. Bye. That's it, guys. If you let your opponent get away with that, they won the game. There's not much you can do about it. You could ask the judge. Sometimes it'll work. Sometimes it won't. They might just get away with it. So pay attention to that.
Apparently people cheat like this.
This is the dumbest story I've ever heard in my life, but I think it's really funny, and it's a way people might cheat. So this is my hand, and I'm gonna have fun with it. Woo! Look at it! Everyone was looking at the card I threw up, and I drew 3 cards.
Yep. Apparently this is how Paul cheats. So watch out. Here's another way of cheating after we just completed our match.
Oh, we didn't play game 3 yet. We didn't play game. No, we didn't. I don't think we played game 3 yet.
What? We definitely just played game 3. I destroyed you.
No, remember, I beat you game 1 with the dark arm, red eyes, darkness metal, light pulsar, and in the dark flare dragon. Yeah, that was my feeling. I beat you with it. Then game 2.
I opened rabbit, tour guy, tour guy, tour guy.
You just beat me game 2 with the 3 tour guys. We didn't play game 3 yet, dude. It didn't.
No, this game I opened 3 rabbits.
No. This was the second game. I remember, dude. Dude, come on. Are you trying to cheat me, man? I remember you just beat me this game. This is the first game you beat me with the 3 tour guys.
Yes. Here's a fairly obvious way in which people can cheat. Using pot of duality or card D.
This is a go format. Okay, no.
Pot of duality would be so good in goat format.
Yeah. Alright, so I got no man. Break it back, bro. Heavy the rest.
Wow, that's fucking brilliant.
It is.
Alright, hurry up.
No man your monster. Get rid of your monster. Game.
Here's an example of someone putting spells back in the deck with pot of avarice. Don't know what country people do this in, but let's watch Paul do it.
Give me back. Alright. Use 2 on the left.
Yeah, he put torrential back in his deck.
Nope, you're wrong.
What was it? It was another trap.
I'm good.
Must be a mirror force.
Should have been paying attention.
I guess so.
That would have stopped me from putting a trap in my deck. Me phase 2.
Avarice would be pretty good in goat format too, I guess.
I don't think.
I don't know. It probably would be played. I don't know. Formats are slow enough.
Cheat is cheat.
Here is a simple mistake in gameplay mechanics of setting quick plays and activating them the turn you set them.
Brow effect, draw cards. Now
Do you have anything with lower cost?
yeah, special. That's not hard. Oh, yeah.
You have to have 1 fire.
Special summon.
Yep.
Seed. And the Blade Armor Ninja. And later in the turn I'll be like, MST your card. Can't use quick plays the turn you set.
People do that.
Apparently.
Sure. Here's an example of an opponent saying and dying, them carelessly forgetting to activate it, and your opponent not reminding them that the effect is in fact mandatory. Saying has just died.
Next turn. Dude, sorry, I forgot about it.
Where you should have reminded them immediately that they're saying and died and they should be getting something. Even though it is a mandatory effect, and even though if they forget it, it's beneficial to you.
Can I just search, please?
You shouldn't get to the point where they have to ask this, but you should just remind them when it dies right away that they have a mandatory effect that activates. Dark Soul, though, you don't remind them about that one. Here's a way in which somebody will deceptively seem to have cut their deck, but in reality they've kept it in the exact same order in which they was originally.
I'll keep this Book of Moon and I'll flip it upside down to show. Simple, but Book of Moon's always staying at the top. I'm not cutting anything. Well, I am, but I'm not affecting the top of my deck at all. And it kind of looks like I'm shuffling. Oops.
Yep.
Yep.